But again, we thank you for coming. We ask that the Spirit of God would open our hearts and minds to hear what he has to say to the church this day. We think about fasting here in Isaiah 58, and we think about the idea as we get closer to the season of Lent. Those who never think about fasting the rest of the year somehow get to Lent, and in our tradition, our eyes go to, what should I give up for God? What should I give up for Lent? And then, the joke is we give up the things that we never wanted anyway, but we don't think about it much, except that Jesus tells us how to act when we fast in the Sermon on the Mount. And when John's disciples asked Jesus how come his followers don't fast, he said, the people at the wedding don't fast when the bridegroom is present, and he made it clear that when he left, his disciples would fast as well. And we start to think about what the idea is when we fast. What are we trying to accomplish? And too often we slip into the mode of, I will fast in order to force the hand of God. Somehow I will give up something and then God will listen to me. I'm in a difficult situation, so I'll fast so God pays attention to me and answers my prayer. I'll do something for God, and then he'll feel obligated to do something for me. And that goes contrary to all that the scriptures tell us about how God operates with us. God doesn't move because we do something. God moves because he's gracious. And we fast because we give up so that we can redirect our resources, that we can spend our time in prayer seeking God, so that we can understand that man doesn't live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. God speaks to the people of Israel in Isaiah 58, and the people are crying out to God. Why have we fasted and you don't see? Why have we humbled ourselves and you don't seem to care or to know about it? And like so many of us, the people of Israel at the time were trying to use their religion to move the hand of God. We do all these things and God doesn't seem to take notice. We refrain from eating a few times a week and God doesn't seem to care. And we humble ourselves and God doesn't seem to know what we're doing, what's going on. This isn't working for us. And too often we use our religious behavior in order to make God do something. We do something so we hope that it works. If we give up something for God, we hope that he'll then do something for us. If we spend time in prayer, we hope that God will have to do what we ask him. If we follow our religion faithfully, then we force God's hand, and it doesn't work like that. God speaks very clearly, behold, in the day that you fast, you seek your own pleasure. We seek our own pleasure. We seek to do things for God so that God will do something for us, but yet the Bible says they oppose all their workers. And behold, you fast only to quarrel and to fight and to hit with the wicked fist. There was a disconnect between their religious life, the things that they were doing for God, and the way they carried themselves. They were fasting so that God would hear them, but they were oppressing their workers because they needed them to get things done so that they could go forward. There was a sense of being caught up in the world, seeking our own pleasure, doing things for ourselves. Both of them the same. Actually, they were seeking to move God's hand so that God would respond to them, and they were oppressing their workers to get more work out of them so that they could fulfill all their needs. There was a real struggle, but it surrounded the fact that the day that you fast, you seek your own pleasure. You seek your own well-being. You seek your own good. And God said, that's not how I work. You see, the very lie of the enemy is that we who are in need then go out and do all we can to fulfill our need. And when our needs are met, then we will be satisfied. If we go out and work real hard, we'll have enough, and then we'll be happy, and then we can serve God. If we seek God and tell him our needs, he'll somehow answer them, and then we'll no longer have needs and life will be good. But we forget that Jesus said if you keep your life, you lose it. That the way of the cross, that the way of the kingdom is that we die to self. That we follow Jesus, who went to the cross and gave up his life so that we might live. And so God, speaking to the people through the prophet, says, this is the fast that I choose. Not a day for a person to humble himself, not to bow down his head like a reed, to spread sackcloth and ashes under him. Is this what you think is an acceptable day to the Lord? If going through the motions of showing that you're humble and wearing sackcloth and bowing your head and looking sad, Jesus even said in the Sermon on the Mount, when you fast, wash up and don't let anybody know what's going on. It's not about being seen by everyone else as being religious. It's about an attitude towards God. He says, if this is what you think that I expect, then you're completely wrong. Is not this the fast that I choose? To loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the straps of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free, to seek to break every yoke. What are we here for? Why has God in his infinite wisdom placed us on this planet, sent his son to die that we might have life, and then leaves us in this place? Why does he call us to follow him, to die, when he could just as easily save us and remove us into the kingdom of heaven? Why has he left us in this place? What are we here for? What is the fast that we choose? How do we show that we are committed to serve God? How do we live a life that is reflective of the kingdom? If Jesus has called us to follow him, what does that mean? What does it look like? The gods of this world are very clear at what it looks like. Work long hours, spend a lot of money, wear the latest thing, drive the best car, live in the fanciest house. Get all your needs met as much as possible. Hold on to all that you can, and he who dies with the most toys wins. They're very clear about it, and we get caught up in the worship of the wrong God, when in fact God says, come follow me, lay down your life. Spend yourself for the needs of others. Seek to set the oppressed free. Seek to unbind the yoke that has so many weighed down. Give your life and you'll get it back. All belongs to God. Freely you have given, freely receive. It becomes a whole different way to approach God. The fact that Jesus comes and the cross is central to our religious belief, is central to our faith, is that on the cross Jesus lays down his life. Totally alone, completely, he dies so that you could have life. And he says, come follow me. He dies that we could live. He gives himself, spends himself. He who is a very nature God thought it not something to be held on to, Paul writes to us in Philippians, but gave himself, took on the form of flesh, even the form of a servant, and died even the death of the cross so that we could live. And he says, come follow me. Is this not the fast that I choose? To loose the bonds of the wickedness and to undo the straps of the yoke. I had an opportunity this week to spend a few days in Baltimore with some other religious leaders, some other church members, and to talk about the fact that we live in a nation where gun violence is out of control and nobody wants to stop people from their Second Amendment rights. But what does it mean to make places safe to live? What does it mean to have safe guns? And what does it mean to have good laws that keep legal guns out of the hands of crazy people? And we began to talk about what it means to bring justice to those who have suffered the loss of everything as our economy tanked because people on one end were really, really, really greedy, and the effects have trickled down and destroyed lives. And the very banks that were were given relief refused to pass it on to those who they got wealthy on the backs of. What does it mean to set the oppressed free? We need to think about those things. How do I spend my life? What does it mean to follow Jesus? Is this not the fast that I choose? To share your bread with the hungry, to bring the homeless poor into your house. When you see the naked, to cover him. And not to hide yourself from your own flesh. What does it mean in a city where More and more people seem to be struggling. More and more people are sitting on the street. More and more people in one of the richest cities in the world has people that don't know where their next meal is coming from. What does it mean for us who have more than enough, but continue to look up and say, but I don't have what they have, rather than looking down and saying, thank God I'm not in that place? What does it mean when we take an honest look at the blessings that the Lord has received us, and then we hear the words, come follow me? What does it mean to share your bread with the hungry? Jesus says when you have a banquet, don't invite those people who can pay you back, but invite those who have no resources. When's the last time that we opened our dining room table to someone in need of a good meal and no resources to give back to us so that we can share back and forth the goodness that God has given us? When have we had the opportunity to take someone in who had no place to stay to live on our couch? And I'm not saying that everyone needs to do these things, but this is not my idea, this is God's. What does it mean to share your closet full of clothes with those who have none? What does it mean to hide yourself from the very people that are part of you? What does it mean to love your neighbor as yourself? We ask forgiveness each Sunday to God because we have not loved Him with our whole heart, soul, mind, and strength, and we've not loved our neighbor as ourself. I've been thinking a lot about what it means to be neighborly. We've got a long way to go. What does it mean to be kind? What does it mean to reach out to the people around us? We live in a city that's got lots of people, 8 million or so, and people are in a rush to get places, and we complain that no one is kind and no one takes the time to say hello and no one seems to be neighborly, when in fact they weren't given the command, we were. They're not held responsible for what they do, we are. They don't ask each week to God to be kind to them because they have neglected the people around them, we do. And so God speaking to the people in Isaiah's time who are saying, but we fast and you don't hear us. And God saying, yes, but you pass the needy all the time on the street and you don't do anything. Which is the fast that I desire? Where do I want you to give up your things? Fasting is giving up for the sake of something else. Do you give up so that God hears your prayers, or do you give up so that the life that you have can be shared with those around you? What does it mean to take care of those that we see? What does it mean when you see the same person? I'm not saying everybody needs to bring people in their home. Sharon and I in the past have had the opportunity to do that, but I know that everybody's not going to do that, and it's not safe for everyone to do that. But what does it mean when you pass the same people every day on your journey to and from work? What does it mean? Does it mean helping that individual person, or does it mean getting involved in seeking to bring about legislation that will change the situation, or does it mean, I'm not sure what does it mean. Do you at least spend time praying for those people that God would be gracious and kind? We go through religious rituals hoping that God will hear us when God is very clear telling us what it is we're to be about. He said, when you do these things, and remember, we're always looking for the catch. We're always doing the religious things so we can twist the hand of God so that He will respond to us. Here's the catch. God, we fast and you don't hear us. We humble ourselves and you have no knowledge. And God reminds us that maybe our focus is in the wrong direction. Maybe we seek our own pleasure. Maybe we try to keep our life and lose it, when in fact God is saying, consider where I've placed you. Consider the needs around you, and consider this: if you give up your life for the kingdom's sake, that you find it. And then comes the catch. He says, when you do these things, when you follow me, then shall your light break forth like a dawn. Your healing shall spring up speedily. Your righteousness shall go before you, and the glory of the Lord shall be your rear guard. God will follow and protect you. Then you shall call, and I will answer. God, we fasted, but you don't hear us. But when we die to self, we call out to God, and he says, then you will call and I will answer. You will cry and I will say, here I am. If you take away the yoke from your midst, the pointing of the finger. See, that's where we all die, right? The pointing of the finger, that's the I told you so. If they would only. When we stop doing that and we begin to concern ourselves, then God will hear and answer. Then God will hear and answer. He calls us. The lie is that we need to meet our needs, right? In the garden. Did God say that you can't eat of all the fruit of the garden? That's the lie. God said you can eat everything but this one thing, and Satan comes along and says, did God say you can't eat of everything? You see, we have enough, but we want it all. That's the lie. That's the deception. Get it all. Same thing that came to Jesus, same temptation, it never changes. The devil has no new game plan. Jesus, come up to the top of the mountain with me and look at all the nations of the world. I know you've come to set up your kingdom and you're waiting for the Father to give it to you, but bow down to me and you can have it all now. You can have it all now. We want the world and we want it now. We want everything. And we want it right away. That's the lie. But when we live our lives to fulfill our own desires, it's demonic. It's evil. When we self-centered and focused on only us, and everything we do is to meet our needs exclusively, and then God gets the leftovers, we have decided that the temptation of the devil was okay. But Jesus says, die to self and follow me, and I will give you life, and that life abundant. Abundant life. The very thing we desire. Peace with God. All our needs met. Jesus said, you worry about what you will eat and where you will live, and your Father knows all of those things. Consider the birds of the air. Consider the lilies of the field. And your Father knows that you need those things. But he says, come follow me. Come follow me. And I will give you abundant life. The things that you strive for will be met in the kingdom. That the way to life is the cross. The cross is the center of our faith. The cross is where we meet with God and the enemy is defeated. Death is defeated by the Son of God, life himself, willingly going to the cross. He will not, the life of sacrifice will not be defeated on the cross. The life of self-giving is not defeated on the cross. He rises from the dead because our life doesn't come from our possessions or ourselves. It comes from God. And as we give ourselves to him and understand our neediness and our weakness and find our success and our sustenance and our life in our Father, who promises to give us all good things, then we find our life. Resurrection life dwells within us. And so Jesus calls us today. He says, come follow me. The Father says, consider the fast that I desire, and I will hear you. And so as we stand here this morning and we look forward to the time when we will gather to once again remember not Bad Friday, not Evil Friday, but Good Friday, when Jesus died that we might have life. Let us consider how we live our lives here and now. When we think of our religious duties, let us think about what God calls us to. When we think about giving something up for God, let us consider the fast that he has called us through. And when he bids us come follow him, let us, like the prophet Isaiah said early on in his book, here I am, send me. Amen.